You're violating my comfort level.
That's all right.
I'm a brand new
You're
employee as a
uncomfortable,
woman.
lady.
You don't know what my background is or what my trauma triggers are. I'm asking you as a
Oh,
polite
wow.
adult to stand
That's
outside.
still saying that we
for a
live in
moment.
this world where your
I'm
trauma
asking you to stand
triggers are
outside.
what matter
If you're
here.
just a citizen,
Would you please call the police chief
Yeah,
and
if
have
you
him
wanna-
come down?
This is where we've entered into this world of entitlement, that people believe they have this extreme level of sovereignty and ability to live in a sterile bubble as they walk out of their home. And that is not the situation, thankfully. We're back again with the PEM podcast, and I'm Dorian. I've been working another week here, managing everything that's going on right now with the business, getting ready for a major trade show event at the beginning of next month. The first week of December, we'll be at a show called Remind, and then immediately afterwards, MJ BizCon, which is a cannabis-based trade show convention, but they're starting to dip their toes in the psychedelic and alternative holistic healing side of things. So get ready for all that. Yesterday I was discussing some things with some folks, and somebody sent me a post on X that was related to dating in our modern world. And this person basically said that men are compromising their values and responding to poor social, sexual environment when it comes to women, and that women seem to be expecting a double standard of kind of the old values where it suits them, and yet not providing the old value benefits of, say, cooking, cleaning, service-based things in the household, whatever all that stuff is. And it was interesting because he painted a picture of kind of rules for thee, but not for me experience. And he's saying that men are caving to this based off what the market rewards, that the sexual marketplace rewards poor behavior, like emotional instability, the quote-unquote fuckboy mentality that women complain about, but yet seem to reward that behavior. And I wanted, in the discussion we were having, I pointed out that the complaint is towards women, but again, not taking responsibility for what's driving the marketplace. And as I've said before, the consumer drives the marketplace. That's true in all the areas that we see, whether it's the war on drugs and the major failures there because the consumers aren't going anywhere. They want their drugs. Whether it's the gun control debate and how that's going to flow. If you were to restrict firearms, I think you'd have a major problem on your hands. First of all, just sheer numbers of what exists out there, but also, again, still the consumers that desire those weapons. In the case of this situation in the social sexual marketplace, compromising your values and convictions to behave in a subpar manner, basically rewarding this demanding behavior from this opposite gender is really your fault. So that was what I saw in this, is that, if you're going to stand up to an opposing force, you have to have a certain amount of determination and stick-to-itiveness. What rules for thee, but not for me, that little saying, which I like so much, really points to, in my opinion, has nothing to do with gender or any specific social issue. It simply points to one thing and one thing only, and that's tyrant behavior. Being a tyrant, tyrants always have, a special set of rules for others, but that don't apply to themselves. And that's the concern over a lot of these things that have gone on politically. When we look at what happened with the indictments and convictions that Trump sustained, I don't know enough about that, but I think the idea from the opposing side is that it was a kangaroo court that was just completely bogus and just a political weaponization our judicial system. That's very concerning, and maybe that could be the case. But I wonder, one of the things I will say is if you or I, most of us normal working Joes on the street, were to be convicted of several felonies, we wouldn't even be able to get a regular job somewhere, let alone, rise to some prominent political situation. And that's all very kind of concerning. And a lot of us seem to have bought the idea that the court systems are so easily, corrupted and skewed towards something that's not really justice. And I think we've definitely seen that there are issues here with any type of authoritative body, and that's the whole problem with power. And so I think when you're standing up to a tyrannical force, you have to be willing to suffer consequences. And I think few people really are willing to suffer serious consequences in the face of dominant power. And I think when we get back to the social, sexual discussion of dating, I think very few men are willing to abstain from the enticing sexual temptation that maybe some women put out there, which is unfortunate because that should be a fairly easy thing to forego based off of what you're being faced with, which could be, in some cases, a tyrant. And I think often is the case when we look at power and how power rests amongst people that hold power. Women in our modern age hold a decent amount of power, especially attractive women. And we've created that, we've allowed that. So this discussion crosses, all areas of social and societal interaction and where power lies and how it's meted out. So, if you see tyranny and you want it to stop, you have to stand up against it. That's the only way to do that. And typically that also means a group of people having a cohesive mentality around having convictions and values that they will not back down from. And I don't know how cohesive we are in our modern era at this point. And I don't know where we're at. I just watched the whole thing on Socrates and the Socrates' method of assessing information and entering into debate and assessing one's own beliefs. And it seemed to be very anti-ego, which I wasn't aware how anti-ego Socrates really was. It's a constant questioning of one's own beliefs and then a back and forth discussion or debate with others, and never really taking anything as absolute truth, always being willing to re-examine what's in front of you. And I think that's what I'm kind of organically beginning to adopt myself as I look at things. What is the ultimate truth? I think in this method, the Socrates method, there is no ultimate truth. There's the lifelong, never-ending pursuit of truth. And so in order to do that, you have to humble yourself and say, well, I don't know. I don't have the full and ultimate answer, but I think I'm closing in on something that seems to be getting closer, maybe, to a truth, right? Anyway, tyranny is an interesting thing, and it seems to me that it isn't clear sometimes who the tyrants are and who the oppressed are. It appears that sometimes in the rise to power, there's a claim of being oppressed and being foregone freedoms and liberties that justify certain acts of power. And so it becomes this very strange world of perception and what is the real truth in the matter. And so that's why I brought up the Socrates method there at the end. Anyway, we'll get into the videos, see what we got. We might be looking at some tyrants here, I have a feeling. So let's see what this is about.
How are you?
Good. You work here, or are you just a really friendly citizen?
What can I do for you?
Well, if you work here, I'm looking to inspect the Public Records Index.
The Public Records Index. I'm
Indeed.
new enough that I don't even know what that is.
No problem, I can help you. In the Public Records Act, Section 70, it describes an index. It's just meant to assist people in requesting records.
Okay.
And it's just something that's maintained.
Okay.
Just want to take a peek at it and see what kind of manuals, policies, orders, that kind of stuff the city has.
Let me find out what direction to
Sure.
send you. Can you sit a moment? And are you recording?
Oh, yeah.
You are?
Yep.
I'd like to ask you to stand outside.
Why is that?
I feel uncomfortable. I'm brand new and I don't know what the steps are. Could you please stand outside?
That's a violation of state law.
I'll have the police officer come down. Go ahead and come
Yeah,
out.
if they want to come on over here and talk to me.
Okay, go ahead and come
I'd
out.
rather not. I don't want to make this awkward, but you're violating my liberties if you do that.
You're violating my comfort level.
That's all right.
I'm a
It's
brand
too
new
bad.
employee.
You're
I'm a
uncomfortable,
woman.
lady.
You don't know what my background is or what my trauma triggers are. I'm asking you as
Oh,
a polite
wow.
adult to stand
That's still
outside.
insane
for
that
a
we live in
moment.
this world where your
I'm asking
trauma
you to stand
triggers are
outside.
what matter
If you're
here.
just a citizen,
Would you please call the police chief
Yeah,
and
if
have
you
him
wanna-
come down?
yeah, it's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah.
As much as you have rights, she has rights as a citizen as well, so
No.
Are you just some random guy
No.
injecting yourself?
Yeah, right?
Doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Just
Yeah.
curious.
I can't have just normal conversation.
No,
Absolutely.
you're
I'm
wrong,
just asking
first
if
of
you
all.
work here or if you're just a citizen.
I am just an American taxpayer just like yourself,
great.
and I'm entitled to my opinion just like you.
I 100% agree, especially on this amazing
I
day of
shouldn't have
voting.
that button.
Yeah,
right there.
absolutely. And if you want to look at public records as it says, then that's fine. But, you know, if somebody doesn't want to get recorded, they can ask you to not get recorded.
Oh,
They can ask.
100% agree.
They can ask. It doesn't mean that
RCW
it's stopped.
9.73.030 though makes it really clear that there's only an expectation of privacy when
He
you're
is
not in
recording
public.
right now if you
When you're not what?
When you're not in public,
I
so
know.
like if you were in your
We just had that
home
training.
and I was inside your home and you're like, hey, please stop recording.
Okay, but here's the
Yeah.
deal. I'm not a public anything, and I don't want to be recorded.
That's too
Sometimes
bad.
you don't get what you want
Don't
in
put
life.
that on there.
Yeah, sometimes you don't get what you want exactly.
We will.
Yeah, so stop there. So this is where we've entered into this world of entitlement, that people believe they have this extreme level of sovereignty and ability to, live in a sterile bubble as they walk out of their home, and that is not the situation. Thankfully, there have been, strong case law, strong constitutional rights outlined, and the lack of expectation of privacy in a public place is very important, because that is how we're able to monitor those that are in power, those that are in positions of political influence, and just people's actions in general within a public social setting within society. That lack of expectation of privacy is absolutely critical. If we were to allow this idea that you can maintain your privacy in public, then we could allow all kinds of insanely scary things to happen. So then I could commit a crime in public and say that you were not entitled to record that crime because this person is entitled to their privacy. There could be different types of fallout from that, but ultimately, I think it also would have a very steep chilling effect on the First Amendment of freedom of the press and freedom of speech. So it's extremely critical that we aren't afforded a privacy in public settings. It's extremely critical. And the entitlement that these folks have to count and believe that they have the right to counter those critical rights is astounding and frightening, that we've reached this. And I think there's a large amount of people out there who believe this, because it's not something that's rare. We see it on all the auditing channels. I would say when we see these auditors go and record in public, we often see the same reaction. And so it really concerns me. I'm glad that we're living in this modern era where we're able to educate with these technological advancements that we have in these cameras and phone and connectivity options that we have to start to educate people on what the true legal situation is of our, within our country. And if you don't like it, don't leave your house. You live in an era now where you actually really don't have to leave your house. You could sit at home and order everything on Amazon, right? Probably work remotely, do all sorts of things that would sustain your life without ever needing to leave your home. So there's really no reason to complain about it. If you don't like having a lack of privacy in public, don't go into public. it's important, extremely important from the perspective of liberty and freedom that we do not curtail freedom of the press. And then that leads to the other misconception, I think, that there's some sort of press credentials that specific and special individuals are only given the right of the press. That's also a bogus idea, and I'm glad that these type of channels and this type of content exposes that. I think in this case, we're pretty clear on what the truth is. As I, in the opener talked about how truth can be a, difficult thing to ascertain. When it comes to the written rule of law and the way that law is practiced, thankfully, there's a lot of rigor that goes into the logic around it, and I think this particular issue is very well established. So there's no real debatability with this. The gentleman is incorrect, and he can have his opinion that he doesn't like what's happening, but it doesn't mean he's entitled to it. The woman is incorrect as well. She can call the police all she wants, and I wonder if the second video, if we're headed into a follow-up, we're going to see what the police did. I don't know. I hope so. Let's see what we got next.
What's her name?
She's very new, Sabrina Caustic. I don't know if she has a business card there or not.
Caustic. She
She's
is rather
very,
caustic,
very-
She
actually.
does, okay.
That's a great name for her.
Seriously, Chief, right?
Deputy Chief. Close
Deputy
enough.
Chief. Hey,
Yeah.
close enough. I really appreciate your professionalism. Thank you.
No problem. I'm going to ask if I can have a name. You're probably going to tell me no.
I'd rather not. Yeah.
That's totally fair.
He knows the deal.
I had to ask.
Yeah.
Would you like a business card?
I would. That'd be great.
I like it.
Were you looking to put in?
I would have given him my first name just to be courteous at that point. He's
Ooh,
doing
no,
a great
'cause
job.
The records index is something that's supposed to be created and maintained since, well, looks like you guys have been around a long time as a city. So since 1972, when the Public Records Act created 4217-260 subsection 3, which is now
guy knows his
425670 subsection 3.
Wow, this guy is on it. He's got that stuff memorized. Good for him.
Correct. Are you asking for the record?
I'm looking to inspect it. It's not a record, it's an index. It's a tool meant to aid me in making my records request.
I guess I'm confused as to what exactly you're looking for.
The index.
Would it be possible if she took down a phone number and gave you a call back with that information?
No, because I got a tip and a lead that you guys don't have an index, which, yikes, that's a massive, interplanetary size fine from the state if you don't have that. So I really need to see if you have it to inspect now. If you don't, that really finishes my story. But I wouldn't say that
So
on...
I might just be confused because
Okay.
I'm fairly new at the job.
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
I don't know
Sure.
if it's just a log of all of our records.
So I can help you.
Or-
So what it is it's a series of things such as final orders, dispositions, policy analyses. Like, for example, if your city council said, we're going to pass an order about XYZ, whatever it is, the index has that. And what it does is it allows me to look at all your manuals, policies, etc., and make sense of it. So, like, since you are the records officer, I'm assuming, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I were to make a request to you,
I should go down to
and
Carlsbad
the
and see if they're
language we're
keeping
using
their
is kind
index.
of going past one another, I'm saying X, but you're thinking Y. This allows me to say, hey, I'm looking, for example.
Yeah, wow. This guy knows his stuff. That's awesome. And that's the other way that you combat tyranny and you combat poor behavior, I think, is really being knowledgeable about the law, really, really understanding it at a high degree of competency. And it appears that he was like attorney, like competent attorney level. I don't know who he is, but impressive the way he was rattling off those sections and codes that way and really knowing what he was looking for. So we could all aspire to maybe know a bit more. That way we could protect our freedom more as well. And, that's the other thing too with big government is that the laws keep growing and growing and growing, right? I forget the last statistics I heard on how many laws are being entered into the books or posed for legislation or, all the different machinations going on with legislating new laws and then, actually legislating them into effect. It's enormous. It reaches a point where at any point you could be breaking a law and not even realize it, and then this can be used to, compromise your rights as a citizen at some level. And that's a concerning trend as well that I think we should start to, as citizens, push back and say, okay, at what point do we have enough laws, or how do we even manage that idea of what happens if we end up, let's say civilization does last and we're here 3,000 years later, and now we've got 10 million laws on the books. How is that even manageable at that point? How do you even follow that? So that's just me digressing a little bit, thinking about how complex it gets, and impressed by how this man here is really in the know about the specific laws that he needed to understand for that interaction. But that's how you keep the government in check. It was very refreshing to see the deputy police chief understand the circumstance around First Amendment right to freedom of press and freedom of speech, and the lack of rights of privacy for those in public service, or anyone really in public. So that was awesome. Love that. I'm definitely a proponent of freedom. I love the civil rights attorney's way that he closes all of his videos on YouTube. John Bryant, for those of you who don't follow him, I can't kind of support him enough. He closes with "freedom is scary, deal with it," and I like that. I like that a lot, because freedom comes at a cost, and it comes at a cost to all of us. And if you don't want to accept the cost of that, then I don't know what to tell you. You gotta, then that's when we end up in this kind of situation of impasse. I lean towards higher degree of risk in the interest of freedom. Other people lean towards lower degree of risk in the interest of safety, and that may potentially always be an issue. I think that it's a mistake to constantly seek safety at the hands of Big Daddy or Big Brother, making your life safer through legislation and enforcement. I think that's a terrible idea. Instead of becoming an adept, competent adult in this world, which would be a much better choice, in my opinion. But that's the world we live in. So yeah, if you don't, like your lack of privacy in public, I would disagree with you there and say, hey, find a way to not go in public. Anyway, that was it was great. Really, really nice to see that happen. What city was that again? Did we hear what city that was in?
Shoot, I don't think so.
Wherever it was, they're doing things right there. At least there. That was pretty cool. That woman just needed education, and so did that man that was injecting himself, as he put it, into the interaction, which I thought was funny. Yep, cool video.
What's going on here? Why are you at the library?
Oh, just doing a bunch of boring library business.
And they asked you to leave?
No, he says I was breaking the code of asset conduct. So I looked at the asset conduct, but I didn't see any of the.
I don't know what conduct you're speaking about.
Yeah, exactly. He's making up asset conduct.
Okay, did he ask
A
you to
boss
leave
of
the library?
conduct.
Is what I'm asking.
Not that I recall.
Not that you recall.
No.
So you don't remember if they told you to leave.
What is that? What is that?
Did a staff member here ask you to leave the property?
What property?
This property you're standing on.
Where would
this
this-
is about business.
what, this
This
business?
is the public library. Did they ask you to leave?
But this is a public library.
This is. Did they ask you to leave the public library?
Did they ask me?
Yes.
Why are you asking me that?
That's why I'm here, sir. They asked you
Oh.
to leave the library. This is their public business. They asked you to leave and you refused to leave. That's why we're here.
No, that's not what happened.
That's
Government
not what happened.
business.
Say,
No.
you can hang it with my deputy and I'll go find out.
Okay. She's a sassy one. Do you have to ride with her? You don't do ride-alongs with her, do you? Are you a sassy one too?
Oh yeah, he's real
This is how
sassy.
you
Look at
guys
this guy.
chill civilians? How are you, sir? Let's start over. What's your name?
Look at this guy, tough guy.
Deputy Kelly. There's some sassy officers. All right, let's go in the library, sir.
Sir, stay out here.
I'm allowed to go in, sir.
Stay out here. Sir.
Whoa, what are you?
Yeah, you're detaining me? What's
Whoa,
going on?
what are you
Put your
doing?
hands behind your back.
Whoa, you're being rough, huh? For no reason. Wow.
When I tell you to stand
I'm in
still,
a
outside,
public
you
area.
follow my order.
We can start fresh now. You know you're violating my rights right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're not going to see a follow-up if there was a
I knew you
lawsuit
guys
on
had
this. Huh?
energy
There
pulling
should
up
be.
that you would do something like this. And you do know this is an unlawful search, by the way, sir. We're getting a lot of
Oh, he's being searched
There's
now.
another auditor, not listening, so.
Yeah, tired officers over here
We're
violating
gonna
my
discuss
rights.
that in a second.
Why is he being detained?
We're
Yeah,
gonna discuss
exactly. That's
that in a
what I'm
second.
saying. Why am I being detained? Your officers are ridiculous right now.
Why is he?
We'll talk about this with all the auditors and whatnot. I'm not answering questions with actions he doesn't understand and taking apart.
Get him out.
Apparently being silly in public is a crime now. Yeah, exactly. I hope there was a lawsuit. That's all I can say. Because, and I don't know what force was used against him. Was there a wrist lock applied? Was an arm bar applied? we couldn't see it. I don't believe he was taken to the ground, right? I don't think so. I would hope he wasn't taken to the ground. But what kind of force was used? Now, the one thing I've learned about getting a little more familiar with this stuff is the gram factors, which have to do with Graham versus someone, forget who the other the defendant was in the case, but it has to do with use of force cases. So, you know, what was the severity of the crime he committed? So severity seems pretty damn low here. Then what was he, you know, actively resisting the officer, and then was he presenting a public threat or a direct personal threat to the officers or other people in public? So the answer to all those is, well, the answer to the last two is no, and then the first one is we don't even know if he even committed a crime at all, so there's no right for that officer to put any hands on him, to do anything to him. So it begs the question, was there a lawsuit filed? I would hope so. It's the only way to really get change to start happening, and these videos are great because at least it spreads awareness and people watch them, and hopefully we get bigger and bigger following of people watching these videos and seeing the tyranny that's foisted upon people by those who are put in positions of power that they're put there by us, you know, by the you know, citizenry population. And so yeah, you could tell that cop was a real piece of work. It's crazy too, because I have to be honest with you guys, I don't react well to someone touching me. And that cop putting hands on me illegally could lead to me defending myself. And that could get really ugly really quickly. And I'm not sure, you know, how to really look at that. You know, on the one hand, there is a side of the spiritual experience that I've had with psychedelics that really comes to mind when I took an ounce of mushrooms, 28 grams of psilocybin mushrooms, and 30 tabs of LSD, which was probably somewhere in the 4,000 to 4,500 microgram range of LSD, and then that evening unfolding with me being arrested. When I was arrested, I was over the full trajectory of the trip, so I was on what I call the reward portion, the part where the spiritual elements bestow upon you the wisdom that trip is leading towards, as long as you survive it and don't lose your damn mind and go completely insane, which it was close that night. And in that situation, I was arrested, and they did put hands on me, but I did not resist at all. And I normally would have taken it very, very differently. And so I have to question myself on my own ego here. Because, like I said, my initial reaction is going to be to probably defend myself forcefully against that officer. And I have to admit that I think there's a certain amount of my own personal ego involved there, in that I feel very justified in that he's not in the right to do that, and he's not as big and as strong as he thinks he is, which is ego. I have to admit 100% that's ego. With the martial arts training I have, I could find myself easily dealing with that cop, and so that's not a good thing. And that's what my message is, really not to support that idea at all. So that's why I had to think inside of myself, really going back to one of the core moments that showed me manipulation techniques that are part of a type of surrender to the universe. And what danger are you really in at that point? I think you have to decide if the threat is really one of true personal safety threat, and then at that point, I guess you would need to defend yourself. I don't think that was the case here. It's just ego, and so really surrendering to that, going through the process, stating your rights, being clear about that, recording it, and then fighting it later, and definitely filing that lawsuit are all important things. But these guys that stand there like tough guys and do that, yeah, it's a tough one, because it's like, man, believe me, you're not as tough as you think you are. We can go there, and that whole mentality emerges and then creates way more problems, way more of a bigger issue, and someone getting hurt, maybe multiple people getting hurt, where it's really not necessary. So I have to fight that within myself. I don't react well to those guys that stand there like that, because that's a classic tyrant. It's a classic bully. It's something I was raised around. I experienced violence at the hands of people with that mentality. I don't see a difference between that officer and some Crip or Blood or 18th Street or Mara Salvatrucha, Trente gangster. I see it all the same to me. They look the same. It feels the same. It's the same vibe. Where are you from? What are you doing here? Type attitude. And so I have a violent reaction to that, and I have to overcome that myself because the teaching of the ego mitigation and management is to not respond in that way to that. But it's a challenge for me. I don't respond well to people like that. But under the influence of a lot of LSD and mushrooms, I responded quite well to that because my ego was done. It was really taking a major back seat at that situation. And so I was able to see mastery in action. And what happened with those cops was a changing of their attitude. And so he was attempting to poke fun at the situation and be silly with the cop, calling him sassy, calling her sassy. But understand that the humor was at their expense, as we call it. And because the humor was at their expense, and with the large egos that they have, then the response is what you see. So the humor has to shift in this ego mitigation and management model from being at their expense to your own expense or someone else's expense to draw attention away from the ego. So he was doing a funny job of being kind of a bumbling, incompetent, trying to understand what she's saying thing. He clearly was just kind of playing kind of word games with her. And that, I think at one point she wasn't sure what he was doing. Was he really, a little weird in the head? She wasn't sure, you know what I mean? But then when he started poking fun directly at that officer that thinks he's a tough guy, you could see that changes into something that's a full-on conflict, direct and opposite forces conflict, butting heads. So I think he would have done better if we really were approaching this from the perspective of ego mitigation, of creating a humorous environment that paints him in the light of someone who is incompetent and a little out of it and a little strange, and maintaining that. If the goal, it depends on what your goal is, but in the goal of mitigating ego, which is what the idea of this channel is, and then seeing the pressure points, the trigger points. Like I said, for me, the big tough guy point is something I don't respond well to. Then having to check myself internally, come to grips with that, understand that I'm going to be ruthless towards my own ego, and then progress in that way. But yeah, I don't like tyrants, and I don't like gangsters particularly very much, at least gangsters that want to force their will upon others, I'm not a fan of. So, yeah. Anyway, ego mitigation is a very tricky thing. It starts with the self, and then understanding how to use humor, how to use misdirection, how to use deception in a way that diffuses and de-escalates versus using humor and deception and things in a way that puts people on the defensive and puts them into a state of conflict. And I think that's what he did there. And again, whatever his goal is what's important. I don't know what he's trying to accomplish. Maybe just get good content and also expose tyrants, which is fine with me. But our purpose on the channel is to talk about ego. So pointing out another way to approach that.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. What's up?
What's up? I was just wondering, can I have you remove your sunglasses so I know who I'm talking to?
I'm not going to. I don't even want to talk. I hate the police.
Oh, man, not like that.
I hate you guys. Like,
But
if I don't, and I don't have my trifold.
Isn't that like a cop car?
I don't answer questions. It's a mockery of the police. I hate you fucking guys so much. Like when I pray that you guys, get over here, Rosie. I pray that you guys' car explodes.
Why is that?
Because if you guys are all evil and bad.
Well, why do you think that?
Well, if there was a good one, there would be no bad ones. And there's shit ton of bad ones.
That's faulty
Well, I
logic.
don't think I'm a
So what's
cop.
up though? You're cute. I mean, I
I
would
approve- well,
I would
thank
bang
you.
you, but
I
I would
mean-
never fucking
Oh,
anything
wow.
other than that.
What if we do it along the lines that, like, I'm going to be respectful to you, okay?
Yeah, I'm not respectful to cops. It'd be best
That's
if you just
fine.
stop
That's fine.
talking
If you
to
want
me.
to look at me as an officer,
Yeah, I
totally
do.
understand
If you
that.
take off that costume, that clown costume, then I'll I'll talk to you.
Well, if you took off your sunglasses, it'd probably be easier to speak
What's up,
with
though?
you.
What do you want?
I was just seeing who you
Oh,
are and
I don't
everything
want you
like
to know
that.
who I am. I'm incognito.
And you have that right. It's not a
I
big
know my
deal. Why
rights.
are you an incognito?
Because I might have warrants. What if I have a bunch of warrants?
And you have warrants.
Yeah.
So
What
what's the
if
issue
when
with
you
that?
looked on the thing it said armed and dangerous? I don't want you to run my name.
Is that the case?
It might be.
Okay, and we can talk that out. It's not a big
No,
deal.
we're not talking shit
Yeah,
out.
we
I'm
can't
not
talk
talking.
that out.
I'm not.
That
I'm not
we
saying
can't
nothing.
talk out.
And that's fine.
All right.
It's fine.
Holler at you then. I don't know why I rolled down the window.
Or do you work in the area?
I'm not gonna answer any questions. Do you work in the area?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a deputy over here.
Oh, a deputy.
Yeah.
You mean a clown?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this your coworker?
What? That's just some hitchhiker I picked up. Why? What's up?
No,
Is
it's
they have a
your
warrant or
vehicle?
something?
No. No. I'm
Okay.
just.
Then why'd you pull him out?
Bruce and I just like to make conversation.
Bruce Almighty.
I mean, if
You know, I
want-
shared the
nice
same
guy.
birthday as Sean Reyes.
Yeah.
You know that?
Go ahead.
Do you realize that? I'm just saying, I do.
I'm just.
I thought that was
Reyes.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Isn't Sean Reyes the
Yeah,
First
pretty
Amendment
cool.
auditor? Is
Yeah.
that
But
Long Island
if I had
audit?
my
Is that what he's
trifold
talking
with
about?
me, then I could talk to you because I'd know what to say because I, don't
think-
really have a brain of my
I
own.
think he is.
But I
think
don't
he's-
have my trifold with me.
I think that's
I
what
don't
he's
know
talking
what a
about.
trifold is.
Yeah, what is a
You
trifold?
don't?
I don't. I'm being honest with you. I don't know what that is.
You don't know what an indestructible trifold is?
What is
I
that?
don't
You're
either.
behind times.
I guess. I mean,
no idea
if
what
you
that
give
is.
me the
Google what
knowledge.
an
No idea what that is.
indestructible trifold is.
We'll have to look that up as well.
What is like? What does it do?
What does it do? It tells you how to talk to cops. See me, I'm just like fuck you, you horrible bitch. I'm like that to cops.
wow.
And guy, girl, it doesn't matter. But you notice I would. Yeah, she hates cops too. We both hate cops. Bad.
Ouch.
Okay.
So, why do you have him out of the car for speeding?
That's just how Bruce does it. He just gets them.
Oh, fuck. Tell
That's,
Bruce I say fuck
You can tell him.
Okay,
Fuck
now
you,
I understand
Bruce.
the context of the situation. They've been stopped for
So-
speeding, and he's a passenger. I didn't understand. I couldn't understand what was going on there for a second. So, the good news in that situation is that he's entitled, really, to say the things he's saying, and to have the attitude that he has. That's the good news about the state of the country that we live in. That you are entitled to have your opinions about authority and about law enforcement, and there's really no right on their part to impinge upon that if you haven't committed a crime. So, he's basically engaging in his First Amendment protected right from the perspective of what he's accomplishing there. The woman handled it pretty well. He said some pretty crazy things. At least one or two of a sexual nature. I think you have to be very careful with things of a sexual nature, by the way, because although your First Amendment right is protected, say, with the middle finger and the word, fuck you or fuck off and things like that, I don't believe you're protected when you get into things of a sexual nature. As far as I understand laws, and that might pertain to certain states, I don't really know the law enough to really say that I all have expertise on this, but I know and I'm not sure if specific to state law or specific to federal, but I know that if you begin to veer off into lewd statements of a deeply disturbing sexual nature, overtly graphic sexual nature, that you could be breaking the law at that point. So I would be very careful with anything sexual as far as I understand it, which points to another topic about our ideas around sex as a species, but I'm not going to discuss that here. I just know you need to be careful of that. But I don't know what he's done here other than shown that there are people that don't like the cops, that really hate the cops. And so he's just saying he hates the cops. I think a lot of people feel that way. I got to tell you, I kind of feel that way. But I'm able to look at individuals more as individuals. I didn't really see anything too loathsome about that woman. She seemed to do a good job of staying professional, of being in a attitude and energy and mindset of de-escalation, which was great. I think she did an awesome job as far as being attacked by someone who couldn't stand her and called her a bitch and made some, sexual innuendo. She did a really good job there. So I don't know what lessons were taught. What I mean is, if you want police to understand that they're not liked, I guess that's an effective way of doing that. I don't know. I think there's probably other ways to do that. Probably other ways of explaining that would be more effective. And just the really kind of toxic, caustic, hurling insult vibe of that guy. I don't align with that real well. He's got his triggers to the police. I have mine too. Actually, I don't like the police. I have probably even a similar mindset as him to the police. I don't have a lot of good things to say about them, but my interaction format is very, very different from him. And I'm careful not to poke the bear. I mean, if he had warrants, if he really did have something to be concerned with, I doubting he did, unless he's just not, unless he's just someone who has no self-restraint and isn't too intelligent around this type of interaction. That would not be the way to protect yourself, by having that type of attitude, because you piss the cops off enough, depending on who they are, obviously they might find a reason. And like I said before, there's so many laws on the books that it's hard to really even know, that you haven't broken some small ordinance, some small statute somewhere that gives them the right to escalate further to identifying you, and then to pulling you out of the car, and then finding those warrants, or finding the drugs that you got on you, or the armed and dangerous notice that's out for you, whatever it is. It's not a good strategy to talk to them that way. And I don't know that it's helpful in that format, right? Like, if you want to give police an idea of how much they're disliked, like, maybe do that on social media, maybe do that through public discourse, or by gathering and protest and saying, hey, we just don't like you guys. We think you guys are crap because we think your integrity sucks, and that you aren't, this beacon of safety and truth in our world. I think that would be at least more effective if you did it in a peaceful way and really kind of got that voice out there, versus this. I don't think it's effective. I don't think it's working. So I think there's a lot of ways that he could have went about that. If you want to do the individual cop interaction thing, the accusatory, angry, hurling insults mode, I just don't think that really teaches anyone anything. That's my thing. So I think he thinks he's teaching them a lesson and really letting them know, like, hey, just don't like you guys. But I don't think it's that effective. It always seems to bring up that same guy for me, the guy who's the black blues guy, the blues player that gets the Ku Klux Klan members to leave the Klan. He doesn't approach them that way, right? He doesn't say, oh, I can't fucking stand Klan members and you guys are all pieces of shit, evil, bad people. He doesn't do that. If he did that, it wouldn't work. It's not how he approaches them. So, like, if you wanted cops to quit being cops, like, if your goal was to say, hey, my goal in life is to get you to take that blue off, to take that badge off and go, you know what, I'm done. I no longer align with the values of this profession. What this guy's doing is not the way to go about that at all. So that would be my main point here. We didn't see if there's any further with this video what happens to him, but I think he's escalating the probability that something negative is going to happen to him, also based on the attitude he's given them. If you're going to give that kind of attitude, you got to be really squeaky clean. And then I guess you can, like, have that fuck you attitude, like, I'm squeaky clean, what are you going to do about it? But you are even then opening yourself up to potential issues. People, they're in power. They're in power. Maybe you do end up getting yourself killed or beat up really bad. And was it worth it? Depending on what happens. I mean, we've seen on lots of channels, I've seen where people end up paralyzed for life. Major injury. So you have to think about all that. Is it worth it? I think so.
What's your name again?
Deputy Kelsey Bramer. You can just call me Kelsey.
Kelsey? Damn, I hate that you're a cop. Man, you're so pretty.
I do it for my kids.
Get a different job. No,
I do it for my
you
kids.
could strip and make more money than
No,
fucking.
I'm not gonna do that.
Why?
I respect myself too much, and I know what you're gonna say because I'm a clown and shit like that.
Yeah, it's a clown. There's no good cops. They're all bad. How many times have you saw lying ass, bitch ass cops lying,
I haven't
making
lied.
false statements?
Oh, it happens a lot.
That's a lie.
You can say that. You
know
can
how many
say
I've
that.
had
Yeah,
on
I
the,
know
you know
I'm
how many
honest
I've had on the
before
stand and caught. Man, it's easy to catch you guys in lies because I don't know, it just is. But yeah,
I mean, you can say that if you want.
There's a lot of lying cops out there.
It was nice meeting you. I didn't catch your name. I know you're not going to give it to me.
no, I'll give you my first name.
You can give me your first name.
It's Brad.
What?
Yeah, but you'll know anyways, because I have a rather large YouTube channel, so you'll be on YouTube. I got 2
Does
cameras
Brad
going.
have a large YouTube channel?
Hey,
I don't
YouTube.
know if you notice it. Yeah, they'll
I mean, I
love,
caught it, but
they'll
I'm
love
not
your
too
attitude
concerned
and they'll
about
hate mine, but they all understand that cops are pieces of shit. And I'm sorry that it's that way. It just is.
I'm sorry.
Did you
that
see all? Have you
feel
watched
that
all the
way.
videos of people getting shot and killed by you guys lately, unarmed?
I have. Oh, it was nice meeting you.
Yeah, you gotta
I'm
go?
done. Yeah, I gotta
Okay.
go. I'm sorry. I'll get out of
Kelsey, if I ever see you out of that clown outfit, I might ask you out.
Maybe
ain't
if
married.
you never call me a bitch.
I would never
Yeah.
call you a bitch.
It'd be cool if you ever could tell me
You know,
I'd be
you might not believe this,
She has
but I'm
kids.
the kindest, most loving person in the world. But I hate police.
I'm also.
Yeah, I can tell.
So,
Good
have a
attitude.
good night, okay?
You as well. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Well, interesting conclusion. I wonder why the driver was pulled out of the vehicle. I wouldn't like that either. I mean, you are obligated to get out of the vehicle. It's Pennsylvania. Is it Pennsylvania versus MIMS? Yeah. Right. So you do have to get out if they ask you to. But I wouldn't like that either. Like, why are you having me getting out of the vehicle just for a basic speeding ticket? Is weird to me and kind of escalates things for no reason, in my opinion. I wouldn't like that. But yeah, that was an interesting end to that. It kind of like, is he also? My question too is he almost like he's hinting at the end? How much of that was for content purposes? You know, kind of being the bad guy. Sometimes being the bad guy is really effective marketing. Just so you know, like I think I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before on this channel. Kind of I think even maybe it was last episode we talked about this. Money May and Floyd Mayweather's kind of attitude of the villain in his fights, like the shit talking, arrogant, over the top, fighter that had a perfect record, so he could do that anyway, and it just added to people wanting to see him get knocked out. I think a huge amount of people watch Floyd Mayweather's fights, I think especially towards the end of his perfect record, wanted to see him get knocked out, and it didn't happen, right? And so him marketing this arrogance really helped him make enormous amounts of money. So I don't know how much of that was going on here. Maybe it's part of it. He even said at the end, oh, they're going to hate my attitude and love your attitude. Like, he obviously knew that she did a great job really keeping her ego in check and being very positive and really professional. So that was good. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting too. One other thing I point out, because like she seems to play kind of dumb and maybe is naive to the fact that cops lie. It seemed that way. Cops lie all the time. It depends on where you're at, which ones lie more than others. In some places, they're extremely dishonest. The whole thing that's going on in West Virginia is mind-boggling. What was happening there? Huge scandals. One cop had put a camera in the women's locker room and was like illegally videotaping women changing, and then there was all of this scandal around just deep corruption. I forget how far it went. Again, that's on John Bryan's channel. He talked a lot about that at one point. But just seeing in different departments the corruption level, the situation that Sean Reyes, so he mentioned, and I do believe he was talking about Long Island audit, the situation that Sean Reyes was going through with, was it the, Newport or Orange? It's New York though, Newport or I forget the name of it might have been New Jersey, the police department, Patrick Ryder and just the crazy corruption that was going on there, and then sending this like goon squad that were cops in plain clothes to his house. I mean, the cops are full of shit, right? And the thing is to say every single cop is a bad cop is way too much of a blanket statement. But I would say, unfortunately, because of human nature, people are put in positions of authority. And it's really almost like the cops have more power than the district attorneys or the judges really have in the end. They're really the ones on the street. They have an enormous amount of power. They have the power to just execute you on the spot and call it self-defense in the line of their duty. So they have enormous power. And you can see that power corrupts, right? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's a very Machiavellian aspect of human nature, and it's sad. And so, to be naive that there are lying cops out there is crazy to me. So that's one thing I'll say. But, she might actually be naive about it. She seems like she's a pretty young woman, maybe, have not been around long enough to really see how dirty that job can be. Interesting video.
First, a party vote's been called for.
Mr. Speaker.
A party vote has been called for. There's a process here.
New Zealand National.
49 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa New Zealand.
15 votes opposed.
ACT New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
E ono ngā pōti, if 6 votes opposed.
The House is suspended until the ringing of the bells. The gallery is to be cleared.
Whoa. Okay. I don't know what that was about, really. I mean, what was the vote on? What was happening? I mean, I don't know enough what's going on politically in New Zealand, so I just don't. I don't know. It appears I don't know anything about their government. It appears I'm assuming that New Zealand has a parliamentary government system similar to probably Australia and the UK, which some would say would actually be a better model than what we use here as the Republic in the United States. Parliamentary model gives you the ability to eliminate depose your leader at any point. So like with the election we just went through and everything, and appointing a new leader within parliamentary system, you're not stuck for 4 years. You can remove them immediately. I don't know enough about it. That's just a digression. I don't know what that was all about, but obviously these they're called the Maori people, native New Zealanders. Is that what that was from? A Maori cultural dance and song. So one of the things that's clear that's happened, I think, for many of us in the West is we've lost the cultural roots and the cultural cohesion that really has a lot of power in keeping people, people having a cohesive conviction value system and an unwillingness to to compromise those convictions and values, even in the face of dominant power or tyranny or those type of things. I don't, again, know what the dispute was about and what the votes were for and what was going on there, but you saw the power of the cultural cohesion there and these people standing up. And then I guess that was too disruptive, so then they're clearing the floor. Is that what was happening there? And I don't know who was speaking and who has control of that circumstance, right? I imagine if they were really in a parliamentary hearing, you've got your prime minister, you got Speaker of the House, you got a bunch of stuff. I don't even know. I don't really know enough about that. So whoever's issuing that order, but powerful response, right? These are people who are standing together in solidarity. They believe in the same things. They have a similar cultural background. That has been the erosion of our sense of community, our sense of village, a sense of tribal community here, especially in the United States, I would say in the West, because we're all just part of this nuclear household, nuclear family model of pretty deep isolation. And it's a very good way to segregate and keep people separate. And I don't have that type of cultural tradition, right, where I would have some song and some dance that would immediately engage a huge group of people. I don't have that in my, it's not part of my life. It's just not part of my experience, and so I don't have that kind of support. So that's awesome that they have that, right? I don't know what the outcome's going to be politically for them or what that was even about, but it is part of the thing that I see that is the part of the toxicity of our modern society, that most of us don't have that. Or at least many of us don't. I would say probably the minorities are the ones that have that. So the people of native, indigenous upbringing with certain deep cultural roots might have some similar tradition as that, and the ability to immediately bring people together in some sort of show of solidarity. Yeah, that's not the majority. That's not the norm. And so that makes it very easy for. I think that makes it far easier to manipulate a population, keep them isolated, keep them segregated, keep them separated. Divided, we conquer, as they say. I notice that when you go into, any type of correctional environment, whether it's, prison system, jails, things like that, right? Everything, especially here in California. But I think in most places it's segregated by race, and that's done by, the corrections officers, by the administrative authorities. Everyone is complicit in that system, and it's to keep people isolated, segregated, and divided, so you have power over them. And so you can see how powerful it is when you're not able to do that to a group of people. And it's sad that most of us are not in a situation like that. We have lost that connectivity, and I think that's a big reason why our mental health is at such an all-time low, and why people are searching for a sense of meaning in life and a feeling of isolation and lack of community, pervading people's psyches, leading to deep depression and anxiety, all those things. So, I don't know how you get that back, though. That would be really hard to create a cultural cohesiveness. That's a tough one. I don't know, but that you can see what it does. Those people have it, so pretty powerful thing. Yeah, guys. So ego, tyranny, groups that are able to stand together in solidarity, maintaining convictions and values, effective means of interaction and communication with folks. What doesn't work? What does work? Being toxic and angry and hurling insults at people, I don't think is effective. It's a triggered response that's feeding something within us that I think all of us have a certain amount of that, some more than others. Some feed that demon more than others. And when you feed that demon a lot, then it becomes a bigger raging beast. So like the interaction with the cop and the gentleman hurling insults at her, whether that's just not necessarily staged, but an act of his to create content or not. You know, I'm sure he does actually hate the cops. I bet you he feels that way. But did he kind of spice that up a bit and add more, you know, salt to it so that it created more, you know, content for him maybe? But ultimately points to this, what I'm saying about what's effective and what isn't. If you want people to change their behavior, the punishment model is not really effective, and yet we're still kind of stuck in that mode, especially with our criminal justice system and, you know, the way we, you know, see revenge as the this kind of model for justice. I don't know what justice really means actually at the end of the day. If you really want to kind of focus on what it is, what is it accomplishing? I think what it means to many people is this evening out of the scales. I was wrong, so the scale's out of balance. And now if you are punished in some way, now the scale is back in balance. I think that's a falsehood, actually. I don't think that's true. I think the only way that the scale gets back into balance is if the other side of that equation realizes that they've done wrong or, you know, broken some principle level of our universe, you know, bending another person's free will, which I think is at the core of sin, really, is taking someone's free will from them. So, you know, I think that in the model of punishment, oftentimes the punished doesn't ever really take ownership and responsibility or realization of what their responsibility was in whatever the interaction happened to be. So I think that it's not an effective model, but it's a satisfying one for the victims and the people on the outside of that, as far as seeing it as this fair exchange. And I don't think it's accurate. I think that is just all ego, really, and it's this satisfying feeling of knocking someone down that was perceived as doing some evil, I guess, or actually did commit something that really was wrong. But I don't think it's actually affecting any real helpful change. I think it's kind of fueling egos on both sides. It's not doing anything for awareness. But we've been locked in that mindset for many thousands of years, the mindset of revenge. And the mindset of revenge is very much rooted in ego. So getting someone to become aware and take responsibility for what their role is in something is far more tricky than just punishing them or yelling at them or calling them names or being just an asshole to them or whatever your form of punishing that person is. In a way, I think in the video with the cop, that was what he's kind of punishing her for being a cop. I don't think it's an effective way. I don't know what happens if you have many thousands of people do that. If you keep having that experience, do you finally go, oh, wow, really a lot of people feel this way? And then it does have an effect? I think it could, but it also could lead to a feeling of just persecution if it's taken at a personal level. So again, I just don't think it's an effective, that modality of punishing and toxic and aggressive and abrasive, I don't think is really effective. And that's coming from someone I've lived a very violent and aggressive and abrasive life. So I'm stating that from a certain amount of experience, that it doesn't seem to change people for the better or for the more aware. I think it has an altogether different effect. A lot of times a reinforcing effect of that person feeling like a victim. Even maybe, how often do we see people who have perpetrated crimes where they still feel like the victim themselves or claim victimhood in the face of something that they've actually done? I think that's a pretty common mentality actually for people who are in need of awareness and attitude adjustment. And then further kind of aggressively punishing them with disdain doesn't change that equation. It doesn't lead them further towards waking up. Sort of like what I was saying with the cop and the interaction with the man who was making fun out front of the library. He's you have to sidestep that human nature aspect of the ego. And in that case where he made them the butt of his jokes, the humor is at their expense. They don't, not only do they not become aware, it becomes more polarized, then they resort to this, forceful action against him. It didn't work if we're trying to get people to, if we're trying to create a better world, it's not effective, is all I'm saying. If we're trying to create a world where people are considerate and aware and thoughtful of others, that's not the way to do it. So that's what ego mitigation, ego management is really about, is attempting to practically approach a better way of life with each other and with our planet and with our environment. And it's not easy, because this thing within us that I call ego is very, it requires food all the time, and it's triggered easily, and it happens so quickly that we enter into a call and response with ego where we're actually just following the trigger points through that mode of programmed behavior, that it makes it very hard to interrupt this. And this is now ingrained in us after thousands and thousands of years of it being exacerbated to the point that it is, even through like the worst case scenarios of real serious, humanitarian crimes like slavery and genocide and wars and those things that have deeply ingrained in people a sense of pain and pain body and victimhood, and that merging with a sense of ego, and that even kind of pervading our entire global psyche on at least some level, is going to take an enormous amount of work to overcome that. And so first people have to understand the value of what I'm speaking about. Then that's just the very beginning of understanding it. Then the actual training that it goes into trying to interrupt your own responses. I am constantly fighting against my own responses and not catching it soon enough, and catching myself slipping into angry responses, the same type of responses that you see in some of these videos. I'm very much guilty of those things. And so but I'm aware of them, and then I have to go back and go, okay, and trying to catch it before it happens, which is very similar to martial arts and martial arts practice, in that when you're first learning martial arts and then you're engaging in, let's say, some sort of competition or sparring match, and then you realize you missed opportunities to utilize certain techniques and tactics, that realization may not happen at all, and then you're instructed maybe by your teacher that, hey, you missed those opportunities, maybe you didn't even see it. Then as you increase in skill level, then later it might take a couple hours, maybe you're driving home or something, and you realize, oh, I missed my opportunity when he did this or she did this or that. And then what happens is it keeps closing the gap in time frame until it's happening, maybe a moment afterwards. Maybe you're sitting on the side of the mats and you're going, oh, that was when I should have done that. Then it's happening in real time, where maybe it's while you're still engaged in that competition or that sparring, and it's just a millisecond or a few milliseconds after, and you realize you missed your chance. And then it starts to happen where you see it happening as it's happening, and then you start to get to these degrees and levels of skill development towards mastery, where you're able to set someone up, knowing what's coming, seeing what's coming, and being prepared prior to the event taking place. And that's the same practice that has to go into this catching your egoic triggers and having triggered responses to other people, and even your own internal emotional responses to things. So it's a deeply difficult process. That's it for today, guys. We'll see you in the next episode. It's a good one. Hey guys, thanks for watching. For long form, you can find us on YouTube and Rumble. For short highlight clips from the podcast, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok. Please visit psychedelis.com. You can find all sorts of assets and resources in the psychedelic business space, including retreat centers, clinics, ketamine clinics, individual integration coaches, guides, shamans, you name it. We've also got products, chocolate bars, gummies, spores, Blue Lotus flower, all kinds of things. Go on and check it out. There's even more than that on there. If you would like more content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to ask a specific question or submit videos for me to react to directly, please email us at ThePemPod@gmail.com. All right, guys.